Hi, this is Joyce Polino Crane. I'm the news director at Westford Cat, and I am here today with Leeny Seamonds. She is a master story performer and a globally well-known, award-winning entertainer. Leeny, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great to have you. You are a Westford resident, if some people don't know that. And I thought we would just talk a little bit and chat about your life and your stories and your performing artistry and sort of just get inside your life a little bit. So I would like to just start with, tell us a little bit about your storytelling and what you do as a performer.
My storytelling, my storytelling is composed of a lot of stories. I mean, I have a huge repertoire.
And you write them yourself?
Oh, yeah. I write or adapt them. I do traditional tales and I do personal stories. Two different types of stories, which allows the audience to listen in two different ways, actually. And so I write all the personal stories from scratch and researched and all of that good stuff. But I also love to do traditional stories. I really am a believer of keeping our traditional tales alive and well, and so I like to do those, and then I adapt them to make them my own. So they're rewritten or retold, as we say in the business.
And do you focus on any ethnicity primarily?
Yes, I do. I am Cuban American, so I do like to put as many Cuban and Latino stories into my repertoire as possible. And I always tell one or two or three of those kind of stories, or sometimes I'm asked to tell the whole show of Latino bilingual stories.
Well, we do have a surprise for Westford residents today. Leeny is going to tell a story a little bit later in this show, so stay tuned. But before we let her loose, I wanted to talk a little bit about your background, where you grew up, and how you found this artistry that turned you into this master story performer.
Well, I think it found me. I actually found storytelling and came to storytelling. I answered the call basically through a stage door. My maternal grandparents were performers in vaudeville. My grandmother was a concert pianist who played in the vaudeville circuit, and my grandfather, Barney Geiterman, he was a stand-up comic and also sang in a quartet. And so when I was little, I was told I had sawdust flowing through my veins. I thought, oh, that's kind of creepy, but when I realized what that meant, I was proud of that. So I've actually been performing professionally since I was 13. And studied voice. But my mother was a singer, so she taught my sister and me how to sing before we could speak. And so I just always loved hearing the stories in the family. So I had performer from my mother's side of my family, and the Cuban side, they're natural-born storytellers. So I could hear and learn stories from the family and family stories. And I just always liked it. But I didn't know there was something called storytelling. It was acting. That's what I knew. And so I went to school. I have a degree in theater for performing arts and a minor in directing, stage directing. And it's always just been part of my life. But all through my days learning theater, my friends would say, you need to tell those stories. And the venue that we had for storytelling back then that I knew about was a club. And I didn't like that idea, being in a smoky club, telling stories that maybe I had to, spice it up. And I wasn't sure if I was comfortable with that. And then many years later, actually all my life, I always wanted to do something called a one-woman show that was story and song based.
Yeah, because it seems like acting is just giving words, speaking words that someone else has provided
Exactly.
you. But what you're doing is much more creative. You're creating the words and then performing them.
Right, right.
So
Well, the audience makes a difference too, because in storytelling, you are, for the most part, looking into your audience's faces and their eyes, and depending on how they're reacting to what you're saying, speeds it up or slows it down, and it kind of, in a way, it's a very interactive. You are interacting with the audience too. And for me to be on stage in front of an audience is easy. It's just whether I'm telling to 2 or 3 people or 3,000 people, it's easy. But the audience helps tell the story. And in theater, you have a fourth wall where the audience is witnessing what's going on stage. And you don't have the benefit of looking out into the audience and seeing their eyes, or even if it's dark, you feel the vibration of the audience.
So let's just take a step back. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Collingswood, New Jersey, South Jersey, as we say, exit 4. And so it was a great childhood in a wonderful, nice little town.
And you had a sister.
I had a sister, Alice.
And your mother was American and your father was born in Cuba?
Yes, my father was born in Cuba. When he was born, his name was Wilfredo Augusto Felipe del Castillo y Capote.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, oh my goodness is right. His real name. When he came to this country, he was in high school, finished high school, then he went to college, and shortly after that, World War II was brewing, and there was all kinds of things going on, and he loved this country. He spoke English by the time he came here. They learned it in school in Cuba, but he never lost his Spanish accent, which was always charming to us. But he believed that we should speak the language of the new country, so we grew up speaking English. And of course that helped my mother because she didn't speak Spanish very well. She tried, but not so much. She didn't have great success with it. But I did. I was taught by my grandmother and my aunts about how to have the accent and words and phrases and
you were telling me before the camera started rolling that you are almost fluent in Spanish.
Yes.
And you certainly sound like you're fluent when you tell the stories, and you use a lot of the language in your stories. Can you talk a little bit about the writing process when you're writing these stories?
The personal writing, the personal stories,
yeah,
I
mean, how do you tie the pieces all together when you start? If you come up with an idea for a story, how do you know where to take it?
Well, there's a couple of things. If it's a personal story, the idea comes from life. There might have been something that you knew as a little snippet or an anecdote, as some people refer to it. And if I want to work it into a longer story, then I kind of research a little more. The days of asking my dad information has passed, because he has. But he was a big part of helping me put the pieces together of some family stories and things like that, and my mother was too. So that's one type of writing where I would remember what, say, my grandmother's house looked like. I can remember the smells. I can remember where her little broom closet was, and how you went out of the kitchen and you turned the corner and then you were in the living room, and over here was her bedroom. And I remember all of that. And if I couldn't remember all the details, then I would ask questions of my family who had been there. And I believe it's important to really understand your setting in your story. So if I'm telling a grandmother's story that's in her house, I need to know where everything is in that house. And that's important. And when I'm doing a folk tale, I have a bare bones of the folk story there, but I will add to it. I always add a setting. I love character work. That's one of my fortes. As an actor, we know how to become a character and how to use all the due diligence to find what the character's all about before we portray that in a play or a musical. Well, in storytelling, you're more than one character often, and you might be the trickster, and you might be the bird that tries to out-trick the trickster, and you have to be different with each of your characters. So that's where the fun comes in, is when you're writing the dialogue for them to say, and then finding the voice that you want to use for them, and make sure the voices are different, and some are lower and some are higher, some are softer and some are louder. It just depends, you know. And
So that's very interesting. You were talking before about how you've done work with the Westford schools.
yes.
So can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Oh,
and
that was a
how you
wonderful
teach the children,
experience.
what you were just referring to?
Yeah, I still do that, but I don't do it in Westford, unfortunately. I do it wherever my work takes me. Teaching storytelling to children is a terrific thing, because they're also learning writing. Because if they find a story that they want to tell, and usually when I worked with them, and especially in the school system here in Westford, they weren't telling personal stories or family stories. They were adapting and telling folk tales, folklore. And so they would have kind of a story that had bare bones about that tale. Very rarely would it say in a small village near Mendoza in the mountains, or there was a king in a kingdom in England. They said there once was. That's how most of those books start. So my job was to get the students to write a setting. And once they started writing a setting and they got real happy and excited about where this story took place, then they'd get a little more excited about the characters, because I would coach them about how to become the character. Let's find a good voice for that. If they're doing a bird, do you want to try a bird call to go with it? If you're doing a crow, then you want to say, yes, here I am. You want to keep the voice along with the sound effect of the animal. And that's really where all the fun really came. And so I would do mostly first I would do a performance, and I would do a couple of different types of stories for them of the whole fourth grade would watch. And then I would get the students as a whole to try a few of the voices of what I've done, so that they get used to practicing that. And then mostly because gesture is so vital in storytelling, and most fourth graders don't want to use their hands. A lot of people don't. They're like, they're not comfortable. And I always call it, what do I do with my hands blues, is gesture. And so I would say, what did I do with my hands? Where did I point to when so-and-so came in? And everybody would say this way, and they would know that I'd say, and in came the king, and along came the servant, or whatever, and they all knew. And so I try to get them to do that. So right in an audience where it's safety in numbers, they all tried out different voices using gestures, kind of imitating what they saw me do. Then they would ask me questions, and great questions after the assembly. And then I would work with the teachers, and they would have different stories that they would distribute to the kids where they could pick which story they'd like, or they would learn. Yeah, I used to say, have them read a minimum of 3 little folk tales, and then choose which one they wanted. And this way they were picking what they wanted. A lot of them picked their own culture. Italian, Spanish, English, German, whatever was in their culture, they loved to work on a folk tale. And their parents loved that too, that came from their culture. And but it didn't have to be. It could be anything. And so they would get the story, and then they would have to write out the beginning, the middle, and the end as a synopsis. And then the teachers would work with them with that. Well, I took the coaching. I would teach the beginning and make sure that they had a setting, and then work with them with characters. And then I would come back again and work on endings with them. And then that way it saved the school money, because they only had to pay me a little bit instead of being there every single day with them, because it's a long process. But the teachers were willing.
How long were you there teaching?
Because of so many kids in the fourth grade class, I would come and I would do up to 3 or 4 workshops a day for, let's say, 3 or 4 days. It's been a while.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's
I'm
quite a
trying
lot.
to remember that. I think I probably did like 16, let's say 16 sessions. Maybe 10 to 16.
Over the course of a
depending.
few weeks?
Right,
Yeah.
right. Oh, well, actually, it would be in the beginning, and then there would be maybe 3 weeks go by, and then I would come back
Yeah.
because the 3 weeks was how much the teachers needed. And this unit always took the place of 2, I think, book reports. Just because it was so,
yeah.
and but it was a lot of work, but
Yeah.
the kids seemed to like it.
Yeah. So before we run out of time, I want to give our viewers a sample of what you do for those who have never seen you. So would you perform for us?
I would be happy to tell you a
Okay.
story for sure. I'm having one sip
you.
of water.
All right.
And I'll explain that this is a personal story. It's a true story. And when you have a personal story, you delve back into your childhood or somebody in your family, and you remember things and you write it down and you ask family members questions, and they can help you with that. In this case, this is a story that my sister didn't even know, and I ended up telling it. So it goes like this. When I was young, my mother often said, "Leeny, life isn't easy, honey. Growing up is hard. Kids can be mean." She was right. I've always been rather vertically challenged and left-handed. So all through Tatum Elementary School in Collingswood, New Jersey, whenever the teacher would say, "Line up, class," it always seemed to be by height, or maybe it was by age. Well, it didn't matter because I was always the shortest and the youngest in my class. So I always stood at the very end of the line, right behind a boy named Mark Ditz. That was his real name, Mark Ditz. He was the only other left-handed kid in our class, so we figured we had to stand at the back of the line because of our handedness. The kids teased us all the time for writing really weird. But you know what? That didn't bother me too much. Not really. I eventually learned how to look at things from a different perspective and how to survive a right-handed and a much taller world. But I wasn't exactly what you'd call a raving beauty either. I had these short, choppy bangs, which I cut myself right up to the top of my forehead. And I wore my hair in ponytails, 3 to be exact. I had 2 pulled off as high up at the top of my ears that came out like that, and the 3rd ponytail just popped out right out of the top of my head. I loved my ponytails, especially the way they bounced when I moved. But this hairdo had a little drawback because it exposed my ears, which stick out quite a bit. No, I'm not going to show you. The Morrison boys, all 5 of them across the street, they used to call me, "Hey, Cheetah," after Tarzan's chimpanzee. They'd say, "Hey, Cheetah." That didn't bother me. Not really. But I had to wear glasses. You know those pointed ones with the rhinestones? Well, I had a lazy eye, according to the doctor, and he said that the spectacles would correct the situation. So every single year, after the checkup, the color of my glasses and the prescription would change. So one year I had pink glasses, then blue, then white, then yellow, then back to pink. Poor Paul Wellham next door, he used to say, "Hey, 4 eyes." Oh, he was, that didn't bother me. Maybe a little. But the worst teasing of all came from my very own sister, Alice, who teased me for not only looking like a geek, but because I have moles. I have moles all over, but I have moles on my face, and when I was young, I had 2 very prominent moles. Now, you can't see them that much now because the color, believe it or not, has faded through the years, but when I was little, this one and this one were very prominent and dark brown. And I started to believe that these things on my face were ugly. And so was I. Whenever someone would take a picture of me, especially a school picture, I would turn my head as far as I could to the right before the camera was shot. My mom, she tried to console me. She would say, "Ow, no, honey, don't think of them as moles. No, 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 darling. Think of them as beauty marks." But Alice had already convinced me that these were ugly because kids can be mean. Now, all this mole teasing to a short left-handed, big-eared glasses-wearing, gullible 9-year-old finally took its toll. One family vacation, visiting my Cuban relatives down in Hollywood, Florida, my grandmother, whom we called Mama. Now, abuela is what you say for grandmother, but everybody called her Mama, and so did we. So my grandmother Mama, she caught wind of the situation. You see, she overheard Alice's mockery, and later she found me crumpled up in her bed in tears. Mama scooped me up in her big arms and she said, "Ay, Leenycita, don't cry, no llores, ay, mija. You do not have ugly moles, no, no, no. You have ciolito lindos. You are especial, like this song." And then Mama sang this song. Ay, 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 ay. Canta, no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo los corazones. Ese lunar que tiene cielito lindo junto a la boca, no se lo des a nadie, cielito lindo que a mí me toca. Wow. It was such a pretty song. Now, I'd heard it before, but I wasn't sure what all the words meant, the lyrics. So Mama explained to me that this is una canción de amor, a love song. And cielito lindo means lovely piece of heaven. Then Mama went on to explain what the rest of the lyrics mean. Oh, 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 sing and don't cry, because, lovely piece of heaven, singing makes the heart happy. This little mole that you have next to your mouth, don't give it away to anyone else, because I take it for myself. Wow. Mama had sung a love song to me about me. I was her cielito lindo, her lovely piece of heaven. And not only that, she wanted to take and keep my moles. I thought, wow, if so many people all around the world liked singing a song about facial moles, maybe mine aren't so bad after all. Ay, 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 canta, no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones. Ese lunar que tiene cielito lindo junto a la boca, no se lo das a nadie, cielito lindo que a mí me toca. Ay, 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 canta, no llores, porque cantando se alegran, cielito lindo, los corazones.
That was amazing. I had all I could do not to get up and dance when you were singing. You have a
Me
great
too.
voice. That was wonderful.
Thank you very much.
I enjoyed it. So that was one of your originals.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
yes.
just great. And what made you, I can see it, children relating to that.
Oh, I've had a lot of responses from that. One of my favorite responses was, I was in a festival in Salina, Kansas, and I did that song, that story, and afterwards, some people sometimes come over and chat with you and things. And there was a woman who had several young girls with her, and one in particular, she was kind of, I think, tall and big for her age. I think she was about 5th grade. And you could tell that she was a little, didn't have a lot of self-confidence. And she said to me, did I ever share that story with my sister when I was younger? Because, and I told her the truth. I said, I never ever told my sister this, that I had this encounter. As a matter of fact, when I first started writing the story and started to perform it, my sister said, that didn't happen. And I said, that's your reality, Alice. It did happen. It happened to me. She goes, well, I never knew about that. And I said, because I didn't want to tell you. It was my special moment that I had with my grandmother. And I could see the girl's face light up. And I just said to her, you have so many special gifts. I know kids are mean and they tease us for everything, but you don't ever forget that you have such special gifts. And sure enough, we had a hug and everything. Later on, the woman who had taken my postcard emailed me, and she said that she ran, they'd stayed in tents. A lot of people stay in tents so they can come to the big festival. And she said that the little girl was so excited, and she was like, I'm going to do something good in this world too. And it was just always made me feel good. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Before we run out of time, I wanted to show the viewers your book, Techniques to Rule the Stage. And you said to me before that this is your life's work is in this book.
Yes, it was a labor of love. It was, I'm from my degree in theater. These are all the things that I teach when I teach workshops or coach, from as simple as how to use and change your voice and how to preserve your voice and healthy phonation, and how to breathe diaphragmatically, through how to become a different character, how to color your characters, change your voices, how to have stage presence, how to read an audience, how to put together a story set that works well for each and every audience, because it's never going to be the same. There's a whole bunch of things in that book.
I think that we can all use that information. We're all on some level performers, and we could all do better in projecting ourselves. So you have a lot to teach us, Leeny.
You can get it from my website, which is my name, www.leenydelseamonds.com. There's a link that takes you to Amazon. You can go to Amazon and buy it too.
Yep, we'll put a slide up for you.
Great, thanks.
So we only have 10 seconds left, and I wanted to thank you so very much for coming in.
My pleasure.
It was such a joy to have you in the studio today.
It's great to be in Westford again.
For Westford Cat, this is Joyce Polino Crane. See you around town.